From Cowork 591 Studios, this is the Steve Brown Art Center Podcast Network with producer Blake Tempus and co-host Dale Rueber. I'm Jim Gillespie, and this is the Jesup News for April 29th.
Wow.
Where does the year go, Dale?
It just goes poof, and it's gone.
2024. Tonight, Dale has a number of things for you. We talk about unique honeymoon. We talk about Iowa's new laws for 2024. We discuss screen addiction, one of my many addictions. We talk about facts about smoking. We have Jesup News. Farmers Day and Littleton Free Watermelon Day is updated, and we have the weekly update, and we look at the Steve Brown Art Center. Remember, the Steve Brown Art Center is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that has a vision for artists, young and old alike, to have the opportunity to better themselves while helping to build the skills of those around them. It will be offering community programming starting in Jesup, Iowa, before expanding to neighboring communities. Programming will include a community speaker series that will showcase the existing creatives who reside within the community, as well as a pop-up series that will spotlight and partner with local businesses to provide opportunities for community engagement. The long-range vision is to house a rural artist residency program for professional and emerging artists in all areas of the arts and the humanities. Artists will be offered accommodations and studio space in exchange for a contribution of labor and maintenance of the buildings and the grounds. So let's start with the important stuff, Dale. What's the worst candy there is?
Oh, the worst candy. Did you ever have one of them? I don't know if they still have the Slowpoke suckers.
I've had them.
Caramel way back when.
Yeah.
They were supposed to last all day. And so it's always a challenge. But I to me, the worst tasting candy is Tootsie Rolls. I don't think they taste good.
Oh.
So that would be my number one choice.
That would be my number one choice for the best candy.
Is that
Dale.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. You can buy a double large Tootsie Roll in Casey's right now.
Okay. Well, you may have them, but no, I never cared for the flavor of Tootsie Rolls. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. My list includes sweet tarts.
Yeah, I never liked
good.
those. Yeah.
No.
I don't like tartness in almost anything.
No.
So.
I don't like Milk Duds, and it's sort of on the same wave as the Slowpoke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As well, it's made of the same stuff.
It seems to be, yeah.
Yeah, and if it sits too long, it gets hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like taffy that is old.
Yeah.
I like good fresh taffy.
The thing about Tootsie Rolls, the big Tootsie Rolls, and the Milk Duds, they both kind of resemble feces of different animals. And so that may be part of the problem. So.
All right. Well, that's not something.
Not what you were thinking of, I'm sure.
that I visioned or wanted to vision, but thank you. So a number of things tonight.
Oh, were you going somewhere with that, or just?
Well, no, I
okay.
just wondered. Somebody asked me. They saw me buying a Tootsie Roll, and they said, "Is there not a candy that you don't like?"
Okay, I have to think of one. Yes. Yeah. No, I will eat Tootsie Rolls like you steal from your grandkids'
right
trick or treat thing, and they throw a lot of them out during the Farmers Day Parade. I know every year. I know the Slowpoke sucker. I haven't seen one of those for years and years. But every now and then you go to a place like Cracker Barrel, and in their gift shop they will have old time candy, or they will have real Coke in glass bottles and that sort of thing. Yeah, it's just real nostalgic kind of stuff in there, and things that you haven't eaten since you were 10 years old, and they can see it in there. They have it.
Can I admit something to you, Dale?
I won't tell anybody.
Okay. I've never been in a Cracker Barrel.
Oh, okay.
Is there one close?
There's one in Davenport and one in Des Moines, Interstate 3580. And those are the only two in Iowa.
What is their special?
Their special is comfort food, I guess you would say. Macaroni and cheese and roast beef sandwiches, or potatoes and roast beef, hot roast beef, and breakfast and that sort of thing. And they have hash brown casserole instead of just hash browns available, that kind of thing. So, but they have a fireplace in there that is going in the wintertime.
Right.
And so I don't know, it's just and their portions are not huge, which is something as you get older, I think you appreciate more.
Right.
But it's just comfort food, and they're right along the interstate as we go east, and so they're real easy to find.
Okay.
And you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
And you can eat something besides just a hamburger, So
I must ate too much mac and cheese when I was a young boy because I can't, and everybody celebrates macaroni and cheese.
They have it as at concession stands at ball games now. You can buy little containers of macaroni and cheese, and for a little extra, they'll put some pulled on top of it or whatever. But they're ball games. And so I was very surprised the first time I saw that. I would never have thought that would be a good concession stand item, but they go quite well from what I can tell.
That, what else is unique at concession stands that always has amazed me, and they've been around a long time, is dill pickles.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kids love dill pickles.
Oh, yeah, they do. They buy those giant things.
Yeah.
And, and I I like sweet pickles much more than dill pickles. I like sliced dill pickles like on sandwiches, hamburgers, and that sort of thing. But I just eat sweet pickles for like a relish kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, but no, I've seen them. They have these big jars of those dill pickles in concession stands, and they sell a lot of those too.
They do. And you think about those are good money makers.
Well, they would have to be.
Yeah.
They would have to.
So that's interesting. All right. Well, to lead on, Dale, I've got a unique story about a couple of honeymooners. This is a true story.
Okay.
This comes from the file of Paul Harvey's.
Okay. Well, okay. I don't have to be so nervous then,
Yeah.
as I was starting to get a little. Okay.
Yeah. And this comes from Paul Harvey's rest of the story. This was the man's third bride. He was marrying a Gothic German called Ildiko, and it was a wonderful wedding, a huge celebration. Considering it was the man's third marriage, it was wild. His friends were wild. There was a lot of alcohol consumed by all. His new bride was much younger than him, but taken with this man. Mm-hmm. And the party went deep into the night, and they went into their honeymoon chambers. Probably 4 or 5 o'clock. His friends waited around, to congratulate him well into the morning. And it came about 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon, and they started questioning where he was at and why he didn't come out. But it was his honeymoon. And probably about 5 o'clock, they decided they better go in, and they went in. And the bride was next to the bed, over the man, crying. And the man was on his back with his head up, dead. And they thought the bride had killed him. And they blamed her and were ready to kill the bride. They started to investigate a little bit, and they looked at the man, and the man, during the wedding celebration, had developed a bloody nose, like drinkers that overdrink.
Okay.
Their vessels in their nose end up breaking,
Yeah.
and they have a lot of bloody noses.
Mm-hmm.
And so they theorized he had drowned in his own blood, is what had happened. But then they took him from his bride, and they hired about 6 guys to take him somewhere and bury him where no one would find him. And these guys took him to a river. Nobody knows what river, but they took him to a river. They dammed the river so that they moved the river a different direction, buried him in the river, and then took the dam down. The guys went back, and they killed the guys so they could not tell anybody where he was buried. Mm-hmm. That man was Attila the Hun, maybe one of the most violent people ever to walk the earth. There are many stories how Attila the Hun died, that his wife killed him, that people snuck in and killed him. Mm-hmm. But more than likelihood, Attila the Hun was a big drinker, is that he died from drowning from a bloody nose.
Yeah.
That is the rest of the story.
Okay. I had not heard that. So I have to tell you a honeymoon real quick. Is that Elizabeth Taylor was getting married like for the 7th time.
Yeah.
And they asked her fiancé if he'd given any thought to the honeymoon. And he said, well, yeah, he says, I know what I'm supposed to do, but I'm not real sure I can make it interesting.
Yeah.
I have other honeymoon stories, but I won't tell you.
Yeah,
right
it's
now.
probably a good idea.
Yes.
Yeah. So, all right. Dale, what do you have?
Well, I got a couple things I'll start with.
today?
We can go back and forth.
Yeah,
Is that all right?
you bet.
Okay, I wanted to remind people again of the citywide cleanup day, which is on Saturday, May 11th from 8 o'clock in the morning until noon. And it's at the 10th Street City Shop, which is at the very east end of Young Street. And there's no curbside pickup or anything like that. You have to bring it. And don't bring anything after 12 noon because nobody will be there. If you bring the following items, there's a $12. It's all free except if there's a $12 fee for items like stoves, dryers, freezers, refrigerators, trash compactors, dehumidifiers, heat pumps, dishwashers, furnaces, hot water heaters, air conditioners, and remember all that Freon has to be out of there. Microwave ovens, humidifiers, batteries, and garbage disposals. And televisions, there's a fee of $5. And things they cannot accept are tires, paint thinner, insecticides or pesticides, oil solvents, hazardous materials of any kind, any type of gas or diesel fuel, shingles, and no perishable or consumable goods. And they will have a scrap metal dumpster on site as well. And so if you are thinking about cleaning out your garage or your basement or something, you got stuff to get rid of, this is a good way of doing that and helping clean up Jesup. And another thing I thought I'd remind you of, as we talked about this also last week, is the Veterans Park. It's at the south end of 6th Street, right on the corner there. And they have a nice brochure out now that you can pick up in the City Hall, or it's probably out in other places also. And they are needing donations. They probably need close to $100,000 yet. It's a very expensive thing to do with the monuments they put up and this sort of thing. So they are selling pavers to, you can have, if you want to honor a veteran in some way, they have 4-inch by 8-inch, 8-inch by 8-inch, and 16-inch by 16-inch pavers you can get from, and the little ones are $100, the medium are $150, and the larger ones are $200 each. And then also you can just make a donation to them. And you can do it. Fritz Keys is the Legion guy that is kind of running this. And Coley Mead at City Hall is also someone you can contact if you have questions or if you want to make a donation. And there's always lots of things to make donations to, I understand that. But these veterans parks, they mean a lot to people. And a lot of the towns around have some really very interesting things in theirs. And so they make a nice little trip, just like a Sunday afternoon drive, just to go to 4 or 5 of those veterans parks in the different communities around here. But anyway, they're looking for donations for that. So, and I will talk a little bit about Farmers Day, and I'll stop for now. We're still working on, if you remember, in '85 and in 2010, we had the replica of the old town Jesup, the downtown street, and we're putting that up again, parts of it. And one of them is a blacksmith shop. I'm working to get a blacksmith to have the anvil going and all that sort of thing. And something close. Jim Bloom was a very prominent citizen in Jesup, and he was a barber. But he also owned race horses and was quite a flamboyant character. And '85, I portrayed Jim Bloom in the pageant. And then in 2010, my son portrayed Jim Bloom in the pageant. That's the one that nobody ever got to see because it rained for 5 days in a row. But they're going to put the barber shop up. And Alan Wright, way back when, bought a barber chair that he still has. So I'm going to, at different times, if you want to learn anything about Jesup history or anything like that, I'll have a little presentation, it sounded like several times, on the history of Jesup or something along those lines. And so that is something that's new since the last time I talked to you.
Yeah.
And we have another meeting next, and so I should have more news then after that. So
that is awesome. The Steve Brown Arts Center has a large Jenga competition on Friday night from 4 until 8.
Okay.
Chance to win the large Jenga as well as earn a 50-50.
Yeah. You can build a house with those jingle
You can.
pieces of wood, yeah.
You can. And that's Friday night. Then Saturday, we have three musical events. We have the Langs with their, I always say this wrong, the elk horn.
Elk
horns. I told you I say it wrong. And with the elk horns. Alp horns. Okay. And then we have Greg Dietrich playing his trumpet. And then we have local celebrity Chet Reagan also playing. That's Saturday entertainment. So those are the 2 days the Steve Brown Arts Center is involved. And we will be at the band gazebo this year again.
Yeah.
So that is the events for the Steve Brown Arts Center.
Okay, I can throw out one more thing that kind of goes with this time is the public library news. They have some things out for May, and most of the things we talked about are still there, but they have a new spice, hibiscus. That's a flower, right?
I believe so.
Hibiscus, so they grind up, I don't know. But hibiscus is the May spice. So if you've been trying out these different spices, hibiscus is the one for May. And they also have some samples of some of the previous ones, as long as they last, and come on in. But a special thing they're doing is the spring basket raffle. And this is from the Friends of the Public Library, are selling raffle tickets for a beautiful spring basket, perfect for a Mother's Day gift. Tickets can be purchased at the library for $1 each or $5 for 6 tickets, and are on sale until May the 10th. That's when the drawing will be. The basket is valued at more than $300 and includes gift cards to local businesses, a blanket, jams and jellies, and more. So, and all funds raised will support the Friends of the Jesup Public Library, who in turn use that money to support the library. So that's something new that's coming at the library.
It is incredible the amount of things that the library has going on in a community our
size. One thing they
size.
don't have going on, no movie in May.
Oh, no movie in May.
Memorial Day kind of messed up the schedules. Okay. So I thought, okay, go ahead. The library does do a lot of neat things.
They do. They're incredible. And there's, not only Becky, but their entire staff is helpful. They're professional. They're
very nice people.
Yeah, they do very well.
Yeah,
they're, it goes back to when Deb did it. Deb was incredible, but she ran a library on her own back when it was in the bank.
Yeah, well, there was a. Now I won't be able to think of the lady's name, but when Deb had it, it was a part-time. It was a half-time position, and so she was, but she was paid a flat salary. So she was only supposed to work, 20 hours a week, but, that's not the way you run a library. And so she worked many more hours than that. But I think when Cindy Lally came in, then they made it an hourly position because the way the law had changed. It wasn't anything. If you have so many employees, you have to be hourly instead of being and so. But Betty Wilkerson, that's the lady's name. Deb and Betty Wilkerson. But, if Deb would go on vacation for a week, then Betty Wilkerson would have to work a double shift, and so then when Betty went on vacation, Deb would work a second shift. So you didn't really get much good vacation because you had all that other work to make up or to take care of. So, but it was a different time then. But Deb had it where the Masonic Temple was, and that was the first library in Jesup. And then they moved across to the old bank building on the corner where the City Hall is now.
That's where it was when I came to town.
Yeah, and then that bank building had been through some storms and everything, and they came in and said, that floor cannot support those bookshelves full of books. And so then that's when we ended up building the new library down there. And I don't know if you remember that we brought our kids down. When they got this library built here, the kids from the school, they lined up and they carried the books to the new library from the old libraries they had in the school. And so we brought our kids down and lined them up and passed books from the corner of out here to the corner down the Street. Young and six, they just had a line, passed the books one at a time down to the new library, kind of keep that tradition going. So all of us got to bring our kids down for one period.
And Mrs. Ludwig was the librarian when that happened?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let's go back. So Mrs. Burke is the present librarian. Mrs. Lullick before her. Then was Deb before Mrs. Lullick.
Yeah, and then there was one, I think it was Darlene Reinhardt was before, and that was all there were. There's been just 5.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But then the library didn't start till like 1950.
That is quite interesting. No kidding. Considering you go back, if I remember right, and who was it? Was it the Rockefellers? It was one of those robber barons back in around the 1900.
Carnegie.
Carnegie. That's
and there still are Carnegie libraries around.
Yes.
There's one I know in Hampton, and there's one in Perry. And the one in Perry, they built a brand new big library right beside it, but they kept the Carnegie Library. It's kind of like a library museum building. It's really very neat.
Yeah.
And so I think one interesting about our library building is the fact that to save money, they only built 3 walls. The 4th wall is the wall of the I guess it's the dog kennel now, the veterinarian's building. The veterinarian building and the library next to it, which was the Masonic Temple, they share a wall.
Yeah.
So if you go in the back, you can see that real plain. And so that's kind of an interesting little tidbit about that building. So
see, to keep in step with that, in Ireland, there was a law for a long time, and I don't know if this is still a law. This was in effect still in 96, where if you built a new house on a place where there was already an old house, you had to keep a wall from the old house. So you could tear down the old house, all except for
one wall.
One wall.
So you couldn't build it right on. Well, I suppose you could build it right on top if you did it right. But,
yeah.
Okay.
But part of it was for historic reasons. It was for historic reasons.
Yeah.
Which I always thought was neat because there were, there was some beauty. There's a lot of history. The problem was not a problem. Our country is a young country. Our town is, and you're the town historian. What is the oldest building in our town?
Yeah, I guess I don't know for sure.
I
think it's that little brick building across from the school on 6th Street.
The old stagecoach.
Yeah, I think that, as far as I know, but I could be wrong, but I think that's the oldest building that I know of.
Right. All right. Well, this is Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network. Dale, you showed me a magazine. Do you have that magazine out?
I put it over there. I'm sorry.
You showed me a magazine, and that was Life. Was that a Life magazine? Yeah, Life magazine. And they celebrated the year 1981. I forget how big a year in our country that 1981 was. You look at that. Obviously, Princess Diana and now King Charles is on there.
Yeah, that's the year they were married. Think of all that happened in that relationship.
Yeah. Since
they were married. And then that was the year you're probably going to say the Pope was shot.
Yeah.
And Reagan was shot. And Sadat.
Sadat.
Yeah, political assassinations were real big. And do you know who that is over the corner? Got to be.
Is that, the Rolling Stone?
Yeah, I think it's Mick Jagger.
Yeah, Mick Jagger, yeah.
And what's the lady?
Brooke Shields.
Brooke Shields, yeah, from she was real big. Was the Blue Lagoon?
Yeah,
is that the
16
movie?
at that time.
Yeah,
yep.
And but yeah, it's amazing. I received 12 magazines from 1981, and one was the swimsuit edition for Sports Illustrated, and Christy Brinkley was the cover girl, and I always loved Christy Brinkley. But anyway, to read the sports stories, remarkably similar to what's going on now, as far as controversies and this and that. And there was one, a car and driver. You look at cars, and they were really in love with foreign cars then. That year, they didn't give American cars, but just, and a couple of Reader's Digests, and just very interesting to look back, because to me, like 1981, that's not that long ago, but that was a long time ago anymore.
Yeah.
And a lot has happened since then. But it was really very interesting to have this snapshot of 1981, a year that I had lived through as a young man. So,
well, I wrote down some things, tried to do a chronological order, but I got out of hand here a little bit.
Okay.
But January 20th, obviously, Reagan was sworn in that year. Mm-hmm. He had defeated Jimmy Carter, and third third-party candidate John Anderson
Right.
For president. Then February 23rd, John Paul II, the Pope, was him and Reagan were extremely close. They both get a lot of credit for the Berlin Wall falling.
Okay.
I believe John Paul was from Poland.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was from the Eastern Bloc. In March, military aid was given to El Salvador. This is 81. By 85, El Salvador was in the middle of a pretty big civil war. One of the reasons the military aid was given to El Salvador is Russia was trying to get a toehold, or communism was trying to get a toehold on the Latin American countries at the time.
If you look at the history of the United States in regard to South America and Central America, we don't look too good many, many times because of how we interfered, and actually it turned out hurting us more than helping us because of trying to prevent or get started at that time. So, it doesn't look good for us.
You know, Reagan even then supported Israel bombed Iraq's nuclear facility. So Iraq was a problem for us as far back as 1981. Baseball had a 50-game walkout.
Yeah.
That started June 12th of that year.
Do you remember, is that where they had the split season, or they had a shortened season? I'm trying to remember how they did that, but
did they have a split? Did they have a shortened season or a split season? I can't remember.
I would have to look that up. I don't know.
Yeah,
but it was really different.
It was. The air traffic controllers went on strike that year. We had a local gentleman that was an air traffic controller, Merle.
Oh, sure.
What was Merle's last name? But he was air traffic controller. And then assassinations, as Dale talked about, or attempts on assassination. Hinckley tried to kill Reagan. John Paul II, they tried to kill him. He would spend a lot of time in the Pope Mobile down on the ground shaking hands. And
I was thinking that's when they got the
babies.
Pope Mobile after he was shot.
He had an open version.
Yeah, they got to put a bubble on it.
Yeah.
A bulletproof or something. Okay, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, Anwar Sadat from Egypt, and we studied this a lot, was killed. Remember that Egypt and Israel had signed a peace agreement with Jimmy Carter 2 years earlier.
Yeah, Camp David.
At Camp David, which was a big deal. Many of the Egyptians and many of the Middle Eastern countries didn't like that agreement.
Oh, yeah.
And so four gentlemen, and they had checked all the guns. They were having a military parade in what is the capital of Egypt?
Cairo.
Cairo, and they had all the dignitaries on a stage, and all these tanks and trucks were going by, and the Jeep was going by with four guys in, and they jumped out with guns and threw a grenade on this stage, and started shooting, killed 28 people, including Sadat, on that stage.
Yeah. When you look at the opportunities lost, you think of the problems they have in that area still today, and there were so many opportunities over the years for all that to have been settled if somebody would have just given a little or gotten the animosity out of their heart. It doesn't have to be the way it is, but there were enough people that wouldn't hear of it, and so the struggle goes on, and thousands die all the time.
We are so fortunate, Dale, to have a country that is, although we are more denominational, we are a country that doesn't get wrapped up in religious confrontation like they do in the Middle East.
Yeah. You see a push sometimes for, you call them Christian fundamentalists, to be a more Christian country. But every time you look at the history that the religious people get in control of the government or have a large say in the government, things go bad for majority of the people. And so it's just like the Puritans. They came to this country to Massachusetts because they wanted freedom of religion. And then they set up a colony where they did not offer freedom of religion to anybody unless you were Puritan. And so you've got to be willing. It's just sort of like free speech. If you're for free speech, you got to be willing to hear somebody say something you don't agree with.
If you remember, after 444 days, the hostages came home from Iran. Local woman Catherine Kolb was one of those. She came back to the U.S. from Iran. Many of those hostages that came back ended up in divorce. Fell apart from their spouses. Did you know that if you were like worked in the State Department and you were a hostage, all that you were paid each day that you were held hostage was $12.50 a day.
Oh, I did not know that. They didn't get their regular salary.
They didn't get the regular salary.
Of course, they weren't working either, were they? But yeah, that seemed like not a very good amount, I guess I should say.
Many of the military guys were allowed to choose their next station. They were allowed to retire if they wanted to retire. But a lot of the, including Catherine Kolb, a lot of the State Department people went back to different stations, even after that.
Yeah. Well, there's a book in the public library called Guest of the Revolution that Catherine Kolb wrote, and it's in the public library. And it's very interesting reading. I remember reading it, 20 years ago, or probably farther after it came out. But she related to Emmy Zook, and she still has a lot of relatives in this area. It was a big deal. I was teaching second grade then, and we had posters in the window, and they had the yellow ribbons, and they had a big thing in the gym when she came home, and it was the kids learned a lot, I think. I don't know if they understood at that age, it's 8 years old, everything was going on, but they understood that she was from Jesup originally and was getting to come home after being confined, and it was quite a big deal in town here.
If you remember, speaking of children, the Atlanta mass murderer was killing young black children at that time. There were right around 20 black children that were killed in 1980, 79, 80, 81, and they think they caught a gentleman, and he admitted to doing 2 murders, and he was sent to prison. I think he has since passed away. But that was a big deal in our country at that time. They couldn't figure that out.
Yeah.
That was for just when DNA was coming out. Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman, was taken into the Supreme Court, was chosen by Reagan to be on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and confirmed by the Senate, I guess, has to confirm it.
In Northern Ireland, Bobby Sands and 9 others died actually in H Block in England on the hunger strike. Bobby Sands was one of the few, I believe, one of the only people ever elected to office in prison. Okay. And he never served in office, but he was elected in office.
They were IRA guys?
They were Irish Republican Army. Yep. There's a wonderful series out right now. It's been out a long time. It's called the Dairy Girl. It's about the girls. It's about high school girls and their families in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, and as the Troubles came to an end when Bill Clinton was in office. Clinton had a lot to do with ending the Troubles in Northern Ireland.
I can remember reading an article, and it was about these people on the hunger strike, and some of them didn't go all the way with it, and they went 30 days or 40 days, but just how hard it was to introduce their bodies to food again. That you don't just give them a sandwich. It's very, very touchy because that stomach is not used to anything being in there, and it's quite a process to get your body used to eating again. I don't know if anybody's been on hunger strikes like that since then. Do you remember of anyone that's done that like that? But they really were very serious.
They were. Some of the more famous, or one of the more famous people were before them. Was Gandhi, of course.
Okay.
But I've done a lot of reading on hunger strikers, and what happens when you when you deprive yourself of the proper nutrients like that, is the weakest part of your body fails.
Yeah.
So like Bobby Sands had bad eyes, so he went blind first. One of the guys had bad kidneys, so his kidneys gave out on it.
Yeah.
You know, the weakest part of your body is what attacks you when you don't feed yourself. And that was a problem for the guys that explored the world, you know, during Magellan and those guys.
Yeah.
When they would run out of food or have to survive off of, you know, improper food.
Right. I was a Jeopardy question just the other day about it was Captain Cook or Drake or somebody that figured out if you made your sailors or drink some lime juice every day, that would keep scurvy away. You know, they needed that little vitamin C shot every day. And so you can imagine how those sailors suffered out there in the middle of the ocean, not really sure how far they were from anywhere, and running out of food. And I'm sure drinking water was always a real problem.
Yeah.
And so very adventuresome people.
The water would go bad on them.
Yeah.
Other things that happened, Fernando Valenzuela, from a family of 6 other brothers in Mexico, in a small village in Mexico, became the Rookie of the Year and the Cy Young Award winner in 1981 for the Los Angeles Dodgers, the year of Fernando. And then the big news, Princess Diana and Prince Charles married that summer.
So how'd that turn out?
Didn't turn out well for either one of them.
Yeah.
I was looking at Prince Charles on this magazine. He looks a lot like the older son.
Yeah.
You know, if you look closely at that.
Yeah.
And lastly, solidarity in Poland took place. If you look at it, there was a lot to do with unions during that time. We talked about unions last week. This is Steve Brown Arts Center.
Some of our sponsors for the Steve Brown Arts Center, Reyes Concrete, the Littleton Lounge, LLC, the Littleton Chatham Historical Society, always a big help. Laces, 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 we talked about them last week also in Independence, do a lot of good work with the arts. Joe and Judy Olson, the Independence Bulletin Journal, and we'll stop with Derek's Repair, LLC. And you ever had any work down there?
I just, today I had Derek detail my vehicle and did just a great job. If you get a chance to have Derek detail your vehicle, please do that. Derek is located over on, what street is that?
Oh, man. It's the one that runs right by the lumberyard.
Yeah, it is.
East and west by the lumberyard.
Is that Young Street?
No, Young Street's right here. So it's either Stevens or Purdy. I think it's Stevens. I think it's Stevens.
Yeah.
Right across from where Stu Benz lived.
But
yeah, 1 block south of the railroad track.
Derek is extremely good at what he does, so please support our sponsor. Dale, what else do you have for us
Well, I was going
this week?
Have a little thing, politics, and it's been interesting this week because the Republicans and Democrats have gotten together on a couple things to pass, and the radical people in the Republican Party really after the Speaker, but the Speaker is apparently doing what he can to get some laws passed and get the country moving forward, and so... but anyway, I found this thing. It's called Republicans versus Democrats, and see if you agree with this, okay? Democrats buy most of the books that have been banned somewhere. Republicans form censorship committees and read them as a group. Republicans consume 3/4 of all the rutabaga produced in this country. The remainder is thrown out. You ever eaten rutabaga?
I like rutabaga.
Oh, do you really? Okay. Republicans usually wear hats and almost always clean their paintbrushes. Democrats give their worn-out clothes to the less fortunate. Republicans wear theirs. Republicans employ exterminators. Democrats step on the bugs. Democrats name their children after currently popular sports figures, politicians, and entertainers. Republican children are named after their parents or grandparents according to where the money is. Not helping much. Democrats keep trying to cut down on smoking but are not successful. Neither are Republicans. Republicans tend to keep their shades drawn, although there is seldom any reason why they should. Democrats ought to. but don't. Republicans study the financial pages of the newspaper. Democrats put them in the bottom of the birdcage. Republicans raise dahlias, Dalmatians, and eyebrows. Democrats raise Airedales, kids, and taxes. Democrats eat the fish they catch. Republicans hang them on the wall. Republican boys date Democrat girls. They plan to marry Republican girls, but feel they're entitled to a little fun first. Democrats make up plans and then do something else. Republicans follow the plans their grandfathers made. All right, one more. Republicans sleep in twin beds, some even in separate rooms. That is why there are more Democrats. To our listeners, I'm going through a folder that I kept for you when I was teaching, and this is something that was in there, and I'm going to use this, and then I'm cleaning out the folder. But so you may be suffering through some things over the next few weeks. So.
Well, I enjoyed that, and
Well,
I enjoyed last week's stories about the man and the woman. They were Bohemian, the Bohemian
Yeah, she wrote
husband
the
and
letter.
wife.
Yeah, she wrote the letter. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Very true.
Quite interesting. This is the SBAC Podcast Network. Dale, how much time do you spend on your cell phone?
I don't think even an hour a day. I mean, it's a small amount.
Good for you.
Yeah. Though I have to say that my kids put a couple word games on there, and I've been doing those every morning, so my time is up now. That's one of the first things I do when I get up in the morning is do that spelling, and I like connections, and there's a spelling game. And so, put letters together to make words. And so that has increased my time, but I text very little, and I don't call anybody. I get very few phone calls, and I do have email on there, so I check email several times a day. I don't know why, just in case something, but not nearly as much as a lot of people.
So you are an email checker. I was listening to a show. There are people that have thousands of emails on their phone that they've never checked.
Yeah. See, I like to look at them and delete them.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah, my wife, we're from the old school where things fill up. You're like, if you have a tape, pretty soon you run out of room on the tape or whatever, and so it's hard for us to get across that phone can hold. My son-in-law told me he has 42,000 pictures in his phone.
Wow.
And so. And I'm other people. Well, how does he have space for all those? And so when I get photos, I take couple of them, then I delete one. If they're the same thing, I delete one of them, and sometimes I delete both of them, just when I'm done with them. So just keep my volume down so my phone isn't all full of stuff.
Well, how do you know where 42,000? It would be hard to find them all.
It certainly would, and so I don't know. There are ways. I know you can make folders and put things that are alike and things like that, and so it is very handy. That thing, if you if you're shopping for something and you see there's two of them and you're shopping for someone else, you can take a picture of them and say, okay, which one of these did you really want? It's real. It just send it, and then you don't leave the store with the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of men in grocery stores on the phone saying, okay, all right, what kind of cereal? Because they don't really know what they've been eating all these years. And so you see a lot, if men are shopping alone, they're quite often on the cell phone trying to figure out what kind of cheese was that you wanted or whatever. So
you go back, Dale, and screen addiction was talked about. They thought we were all, as children, you and I were going to go to hell because we watched too much television.
Well, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Our parents said, you're going to go blind. You're too close. Get away from that television.
Yeah. Too much violence.
Yeah.
We had all the shootings.
Yeah.
One time maybe 75% in certain years of the shows were Westerns where there was always shooting. And so my wife had checked out some movies to show her sister when we went to visit them in Kansas City, because they don't get out much, and all of them were we call girly movies, or not girly movies, that'd be terrible, but
chick flicks.
Chick flicks, yeah, okay. Girly movies is something entirely different, isn't it? Chick, about relationships between sisters and this sort of thing, and so it was my job to take them back to the library where she had borrowed them. So I went in, and Becky were both there. And I said, there's no sex and or violence in any of these movies. They said, just a waste of time to watch them. So.
screen addiction more or less involves smartphones, tablets, computers, and still some televisions now.
Yeah.
It's identified by a compulsive need to use these electronic devices. As I look over at Blake on his phone right now.
I'm making calendar updates.
Okay, all right. And regardless of the negative impact on daily activities and obligations such as work, school, or social relations, we are on our phones.
It looks bad because you see in a restaurant, you'll see a couple, and they're at the age where you think they're probably on a date.
Yeah.
And he'll be looking at his phone, and she's looking at her phone, and nobody's talking. I think, okay, how does that work? So,
yeah, it is.
I interrupted. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
I've had this conversation lately with several people about kids and phones.
Yeah.
And you have grandchildren. I have grandchildren, and you worry that boy, they got that thing going all the time. It seems like, and they know so much about it, and. So, but then still we take advantage of them. We say, oh, gee, it's like we do with Blake. We have a little question here. Blake, look this up real quick. And he, boom, boom, boom. As well, you do that with your grandkids too, and they can find it right away. So,
some of the addictions include social media. Mm-hmm. My social media of choice, although I've gotten more since the Art Center started. I'm on Facebook more. My main addiction is Twitter. Mm-hmm. Video games. You talked about you started.
Yeah.
You started video games. I've started playing a couple of video games on it.
to keep our mind sharp, though, it's therapeutic, right?
Okay.
My doctor told me no. He didn't.
The internet, obviously, and pornography. Pornography has gotten out of control. It's become an addiction in our society. It can lead to a wide array of physical and psychological problems, including eye strain, muscle strain. You look and your head's down, your neck hurts you.
Yeah.
Sleep disturbances. Blake, I got to ask you: Do you sleep by your phone at night? Do you have your phone on at night? You do. I listen to podcasts at night to fall asleep. We've talked about on here. I've woken up with our podcast on.
Couldn't sleep through it, could you?
No, I couldn't. It's weird to wake up and hear your own voice.
Yeah.
Muscle strain, sleep disturbances, anxiety, and depression is blamed for it, and social isolation. You have to. A lot of people want to say anxiety and depression came because of the phone, although you look at COVID had a lot to do with that as well, but it was coming before COVID.
Yeah.
So screen addiction is prevalent today due to increased level of interactivity and stimulation people get from using technology. People love that click. Technological devices offer a continuous stream of notifications, updates, and entertainment options that can be difficult for people to ignore. Furthermore, these stimuli can activate the dopamine reward system in the brain, resulting in a cycle of compulsive use and addiction. Although Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders does not specifically refer to a condition called screen addiction, the following paragraph describe addictions that may fall under the category: online addiction, cell phone addiction, internet addiction, the gaming addiction. We've talked about this gambling. Mm-hmm. Gambling has changed because of cell phone. How much screen time is too much? Blake, can you find on your phone how much time you spend a day on you?
Yes.
What does it say?
Oh, you can. It'll
3 hour 40. It's not as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
3 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
That's not too bad.
It's not as bad as I thought it'd be.
No, but you have a job where you're on a computer though a lot.
Well, yeah, I can't look up the screen time for that, thank God.
Right, yeah. Physical effects that we talked about. Compulsive online shopping.
Oh, I've heard of that, yeah.
Yeah. Physiological and mental effects. Insomnia, stress, depression. Mm-hmm. There's so many. How to cut back on screen time. The 20-20-20 method.
Okay.
So 20-second break every 20 minutes to focus on an object at least 20 feet away is one way. This gives the eye a break from the blue light and allows it to relax by focusing on something far away. It's called the 20-20-20 method.
Okay.
Okay. Time limit. Recommend limiting personal screen time, Blake, to 30 minutes per day for optimal effect. I'd have to join you, Blake. I don't even want to check mine. Digital detox. Taking scheduled breaks or putting the phone away before bedtime. You know, I've got a number of friends that put their phone away at about 6 o'clock, which is a good idea. Treatment options for screen addiction include lifestyle changes, cognitive behavioral therapy that encourages people to change their thoughts and behaviors related to screen use and addiction. Mindfulness-based therapy. This type of therapy refers to mindfulness strategies that can help an individual learn to manage stress and anxiety. Family therapy, more stuff. Do more stuff with your family.
Sure.
Group therapy, and individual counseling. You know, it is. I do see that a lot of therapists can be contacted online through your phone, though. You know, I think. Well, you're. What's the value of that?
Yeah. Well, I have several relatives that's their job is to be on a computer all day, 8 hours a day, and sometimes more. And I always wonder. I remember a principal telling me that he was looking to hire this guy who was teaching in Cedar Falls or someplace, and the principal had a question for him, and so he called the kid thinking he would, during the day. This guy had a teaching job already, so he called him thinking that he would leave a message to call me back or this sort of thing. Well, the teacher answered his phone and talked to him, and he could hear kids in the background, so he knew the guy was taking time out of his class to talk to him on the phone, and so he'd end up not hiring him because of that reason.
Right.
And you're still, when you have a job, you're still being paid for your time. And so time you spend on personal things on your phone, go take away from that. And so I don't know how businesses handle that anymore. I try to avoid doing anything with my kids when I know that they're at their job, because I wouldn't want them to get fired because they had to talk to me on the phone.
Right.
And I don't, but I know a lot of people are on their phone a lot when they should be working or while they are working. So
while they are working, yeah, it is. It is. I'm involved in a job where I'll see people sneak around the corner and check their phone all the time.
Yeah. If you have, if you're working but you have a sick child at home, it could turn for the worse, and so you need to be handy, And there are times when even kids in school need to be available if grandma is sick or something like that for a phone call. Even during school, you can see where sometimes people would be anxious about being far away from their phone, but most of the time you live quite well checking your phone at lunchtime and then wait till after school or after work, this sort of thing. So I think, but it's tough because it's when you hear that little ping, okay, who is that and what's it about on that phone? Why, it's hard to just ignore it until you have a legitimate time to check that.
The dopamine. You need that. Somebody wants me. I'm wanted.
Yeah.
I'm wanted. Tragically, this past week, I was walking my dog out on the River Road Boulevard, and I came upon, there's a creek right next to where I live, and somebody had thrown 7 bags, giant industrial bags of garbage into that creek.
Yeah.
7 large bags.
See, that's really, I just hate that.
I called the DNR. They haven't called me back. Somebody told me to call and so I posted pictures of it online, hoping that I would make a comment to whoever dumped it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told to dig into the garbage and look for any mail in there or anything in there.
Yeah, and that's not something you need to be doing.
No, I don't want to do
No,
that.
and you don't know what's in there.
No.
That could be hazardous to you, because people threw that away in an isolated place for a reason.
Right.
And
But it is. We are slaves to addiction, Dale.
Yeah.
And we all have addictions of some kind, be it Tootsie Rolls or whatever.
Yeah. Well, they call it dopamine, right? That's
Dopamine.
Yeah, dopamine. Okay, I thought it would be dopamine, but dopamine. Okay.
Yeah.
Dopamine makes dopamines of all of us in one way or the other. So
Dopamine is involved with Elkhorns. So this is Steve Brown Arts Center, and we're sponsored also by Keith Bickert, Jacobson Fabrication Repair LLC, Even Events and Rentals LLC, Thomas James LLC, Boyd's Food Truck, Mickey D's Pizza and Lobster. They are going to be out at Littleton Free Watermelon Day.
they're going to be a Farmers Day also. They're giving their profits to the Veterans Park.
Yeah, and Mickey D is also giving the profits at the Littleton Free Watermelon Day to the Steve Brown Arts Center.
Yeah,
So they
very generous people.
Yes, they are. We're also sponsored by Dream Chaser Acres, Bobby Leach, and Farm Bureau Financial Services. He's got an office here, manned by Travis Youngblood, here at Cowork 591 Studios on Young Street. M&M Bakery in Lawrence, Kansas. Hi to our friends there. They are sponsoring one of our interns, Ali Borjardin, Innovative Wealth Management, and Cowork 591, as always, is a sponsor. Dale, what else do you have for us?
Well, I don't know if you saw this, but it was a thing that came out. It said the Secret Service is talking with the New York state officials about how to handle things if former President Trump has to go to jail or go to prison, because the law says he's entitled to Secret Service protection for the rest of his life, never imagining that they might have to go to prison with the guy to protect him. And so it said they are just talking, not anticipating, I don't think, but just in case, we got to be ready in case this would happen, because it's a possibility. So who'd ever thought that would happen?
What is their plan?
They didn't say there was a plan. They just said they're talking. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine all the different things you would have to talk about. I don't imagine he's not going to Sing Sing or Folsom Prison or anything like that. He'll be going to one of these where they send people that embezzle money or whatever.
White collar.
What do they call it? White collar prison? Yeah. And so
he the most he could get from the trial in New York or Manhattan is 4 years.
Yeah.
And that would be the most. I don't see him getting that.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, one person finds him or cannot, let's say 11 find him guilty and one person cannot agree, the jury's hung and
so
he walked.
Yeah. So I guess all I want is for them to listen to the evidence and make a decision that's based on the evidence and not on their personal opinions, or otherwise our whole law system is not working right. And so, okay. We talked last week about plastics. You remember that?
Yep.
And there was an article just today about some more of that, and it's getting to be it's not getting to be, it's a real concern. And they're having an international meeting to debate a global treaty on plastic pollution, a global treaty. And plastic is terrible for our environment. It's now considered a crisis of global proportion, and it's right up there with climate change as a primordial threat to the planet. Billions of bits of plastic infiltrate waterways and oceans, are consumed in beverages and food, and are found in the internal organs of people and wildlife. A 2023 paper published by the National Library of Medicine and others shows microplastics can wreak havoc on hormones and contribute to a range of health problems. So they're having a committee meeting in Ottawa, Canada, starting on next Tuesday. It's the fourth meeting they've had since 22, and they're trying to develop a way to curb the flow of plastics into the environment. Plastic has been found in every corner of the world and has turned up in drinking water, beer, salt, and honey, according to Oceana and Ocean Conservation Group. While some may think of plastic pollution as plastic shopping bags or soda bottles, it's It's the tiniest particles, microplastics and nanoplastics, that are raising big concerns. Microplastics, for example, are tiny particles of polymers less than 5 millimeters long, no bigger than a grain of rice. They come from plastic bottles, synthetic clothing fibers, car tires, and other products as plastics break down slowly. We know very little about what these microplastics or even smaller pieces of plastics known as nanoplastics can do to human health in the short or long term, or even what they can do to the health of the sea turtles and other animals that live in the ocean. Nanoplastics are even smaller, only 1/1,000,000th of a meter, according to the National Nanotechnology Initiative. By comparison, a strand of human DNA is 2.5 nanometers in diameter, and a human hair is approximately 80,000 nanometers wide, the initiative states. The annual production of plastic, including polymer, resins, and fibers, increased from 2 million tons in 1950 to 459.75 million tons in 2019. That cites a 2023 paper about plastic production. By 2022, estimates suggest plastic production exceeded more than 400 million tons. And you think how light plastic is, so 400 million tons can't even imagine how many different things that is. Estimates suggest that less than 10% of plastic waste in the U.S. is recycled, while a majority heads to landfills. And we talked about that last week, that different article that said it was like 5 to 6% of plastics actually do get recycled or actually can be recycled. Everything such as large items as bottles, jugs, and plastic bags floating in the ocean and washing on beaches to the particles that a recent study found may be linked to an increased risk of heart attack, stroke, and death. One study found bottled water can contain 10 to 100 times more plastic bits than previously thought. They've also found microplastics in clouds, rain, and in the placentas of pregnant women. There's a lot of chemicals, contaminants in plastic that we haven't even know for sure how much harm they will do to the human body. And millions of tons of microplastic, ranging in size from the width of a pencil to smaller than a sesame seed, find their way into oceans according to the National Institutes. The particles move into people through the food chain and also attract pollutants that are carried into new environments. An estimated 33 billion pounds of plastic wash into the ocean every year, about 2 garbage trucks worth of plastic every minute, according to Oceana. They're looking to have a global plastics treaty, which would give them the opportunity to turn the tide on plastic pollution from policy on the manufacture of plastics to retailer responsibilities in dealing with legacy plastics. That would be plastics from all over. I know if you see these commercials on TV, they're looking for old Marines that served at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina and how the water was poisoned there for 20-some years, and they've made a lot of money available. The people are starting to have crazy cancers and this sort of thing. Well, I was at Camp Lejeune in, 66 for like 12 weeks, and so I know I drank that water and showered in it and ate food cooked in it, and so far I haven't had any symptoms. But what the correlation here is that this stuff didn't show up until years later, because you figure been over 50 years. Who knows what these plastic contaminants that are getting into our bodies and into everything around us are doing to us long term, that some things are going to start popping up like crazy cancers or whatever, and they will trace them back X number of years to the plastic bits that we are consuming one way or the other. I think it was in the guy who did the Kon-Tiki, do you remember that? He made a boat out of reeds and sailed across to show that the Egyptians or whatever could have come.
Yeah.
And they did water samples every day, and they found plastic pollution in the water every day. And that was back in the early 50s. And so it's just getting worse. So.
If you look at bodies that are buried, obviously they're preserved by morticians, but bodies are lasting 25 to 35 years longer because of preservatives, and I'm guessing a lot of those are plastics as well in our bodies that allow us to stay in our normal form instead of ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's not a lot you can do. I mean, it's hard to find all glass containers or like aluminum containers. It's hard not to use plastics very much so. But the one thing I have done is I refuse when restaurants bring me a straw. I don't, if it's in the little paper, I don't use it. Never do. Send it back and tell them I don't want it. And my brother-in-law, Paul Kelsey, I've converted him, and he will not use straws anymore. He always relates back to me, and so he took my advice. He takes my advice seriously. So thank you, Paul Kelsey. So anyway, not to be a downer, but there's a lot of things we need to be concerned about, and a lot of things happening to us that we don't really know they're happening until it's too darn late. And what gets me is a lot of these things are done because people know they're harmful, but they're making money. And that's more important to them than anything. And so that's what gets me more than anything. So.
Look across the table here, and Blake has a plastic bottle of water. You've got a plastic cup for your water. I've got a plastic cup for my coffee.
Yeah.
We're struggling to help the environment here, unfortunately.
I'm going to bring my reusable cup down here from now on.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Because I need a drink every now and then, but I'm going to start doing that. So.
All right.
Okay.
All right. And not that I wanted to make you feel guilty.
Well, a little guilt goes a long way with me. So.
This is the Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network. Finally tonight, the legislators have wrapped things up, and some of the things that they accomplished. They signed a bill into law overhauling the area education agency. We've talked about that numerous times here on this show.
350 people have already resigned or are in the process of resigning from the AEAs. They just think the jobs are not. There's no security to these jobs, and so they're looking to leave.
Yeah.
So,
they passed a law arming school staff and requiring school resource officers in large schools, although the large schools can opt out of school resource officers if they want to.
Can you think of teachers you taught with that you would absolutely not want them to have a gun in school?
I wouldn't want any teacher to have a gun in school.
I don't either. But,
just for the fact, Dale, that there are children in school. Bad things happen around weapons and children.
Well, you think how many times someone's home, they have a gun in their home, and the kid somehow gets through the locks and this and that and finds the gun, and something bad happens. You think you got a classroom, you got 25 kids in there. You can't watch all of them all the time, and that gun's in there someplace, and you know darn well they're going to find it. And so I just think it's just an accident waiting to happen multiple times over, and I don't know. I just think it's stupid.
Yeah. They've increased teacher pay in our state. They've eliminated DEI positions at state universities. Bill requires Iowa 3 public universities to eliminate all staff positions focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Mm-hmm. I'd hate to include people in our society. Reviewing and revising educational standards and curriculum. They're changing social studies for like the 6th time in the last 40 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, they don't want any bad things taught, right?
Yeah, like slavery.
Yeah, slavery or lynching laws and all the whole Jim Crow thing would be bad, and all the land I used to tell my kid, we stole all this land in the Southwest from Mexico, so we wonder why Mexico doesn't like us very much. Well, they would have been a huge, large, powerful country if we hadn't got involved with them. So, I don't know. There's
health care. Iowa no longer has to hire a third-party administrator to oversee the more options for maternal support programs under a bill signed by Governor Reynolds. Instead, the Department of Health and Human Services can directly oversee the program, which was established to send state dollars to pregnancy resource centers that counsel women against abortion and offer a range of donated items and services. Mm-hmm. It's a way for the government to control health care. Yeah. Is what it is. Postpartum Medicaid coverage, overhauling mental health and substance use service. Reynolds plans to reshape mental health and substance use treatment services in Iowa, merges the state's 13 regions for mental health and disability services and 19 regions for substance use and gambling service into 7. So cutting in half mental health services.
Yeah.
Bills that failed, birth control expansion, death of an unborn person. You know, it is, and one of the things that we talk about, or that we haven't ever talked about, is that if, let's say, a mother has a stillborn child, that child is not considered a human, unfortunately.
There was a thing, it was on NBC News Tonight, excuse me, it was a couple in Idaho, and she was 12 weeks pregnant, and they did the ultrasounds, and the doctor said, this baby it's not going to live. And we're surprised that you haven't spontaneously aborted it just on your own, that it's still in there. But we cannot give you an abortion because that baby still has a heartbeat. Even though we know it's going to die, it has a heartbeat. But if that baby stays in you, then you are going to lose all of your reproductive organs, that you'll never have any other children. This is their first child. But we cannot do the abortion because there's a heartbeat in there according to Idaho law. And so they had to go to Oregon, abort this baby, and keep the mother's ability to have more children in the future. And so, you know, it wasn't meant to save the life of the mother, but it was to save the health of the mother.
Right.
It wasn't to save the life, it was to save the health, and therefore the state would say, no, you can't do that.
Yep.
And that's wrong. The state is playing with people like that.
Religious Freedom Restoration Act was signed into law. The government cannot substantially burden someone's exercise of religion except furtherance of compelling government interest.
Do you know what that means?
It means the government can tell them what to do is what it means, Mr. Rueber. Repealing gender balance for boards and commissions, so no longer must they include a certain amount of women and men.
Yeah.
So let's go back to just having men on committees.
Well, that's what the purpose is, I think.
Yeah.
Because on the library board, we had an opening. We always looked at that, and usually you have like an odd number, and so you're going to have a 5 and 4 if you have 9 and this sort of thing. But we always tried to recruit people to be on the library board that would keep our balance, and because that was a law, and plus it's good. It's good for boards like that, and to me, it's more the good old boy network that they're trying to maintain. I don't know. I say I don't know a lot. I'm sorry I do that.
They also passed a bill banning guaranteed income programs like Uplift. The Attorney General, a Republican, would be granted the power to sue cities or counties that hold any new program. Boards and commission consolidation. Dozens of Iowa boards and commissions will be eliminated under the bill. Flat tax, they wanted to take the flat tax to people just paying, I believe it is 3.5%.
Something like that, yeah.
But I don't think that passed.
I thought they settled at like 3.8% or something.
And forgive me, what they must do is they had to pass it. It has to sit a year.
Oh, okay.
Then next year it has to be voted
on again. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, because they want that in the state constitution.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's got to pass again, then go to a vote of the people.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
And it has to be 2 consecutive legislative bodies have to pass it, and then, okay. All right, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
You were right, and I was wrong.
Well, no,
again.
we were both right. Penalties for violating open meeting laws. Elected officials who violate the state open meeting laws would be subject to increased fines and potential removal from office by court. Some bills have failed, defining man and women. Don't tread on me license plates. Letting state agencies outsource audits because they don't want to pay outsiders to audit.
Sure.
They want to pay the government to audit.
We have an auditor.
Yeah, Robert Sands.
Yeah.
Limiting ballot challenges, banning drop boxes. Again, this didn't pass. They want to have as quick an election as possible. Pay increase for state lawmakers didn't pass. They wanted to give each other a raise of $10,000 next year. It would have been the first pay increase for statewide elected officials and lawmakers in almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not against them being paid. It's not an easy job. Not if they're going to continue cutting.
Yeah.
Union recertification, they want to make union They wanted to make unions, if people didn't turn in that there was a union, say in Jesup, in a short amount of time, they could say no longer is union applicable.
But that's the
Jesup.
employer, though, that has to turn in
Yes.
that was going to turn in the list. If the employer did not turn in the list, then the employees were kicked out of the union
Right.
was dissolved, which made absolutely no sense. So I'm glad they didn't pass that.
Right.
I'm also surprised they didn't pass that.
Bill signed into law. Reynolds signed a law granting Iowa Attorney General more power when investigating foreign owners of Iowa farmland.
Right.
It'd be interesting how many acres China does actually own in our state.
Yeah.
As big a deal as they make of it. Bills have passed. Hemp regulations were passed. Consumable hemp products would be limited to 4 milligrams of THC per serving and 10 milligrams per container. It would also ramp up regulations. Here's a interesting story down in Burlington. A woman was pulled over last week because she was swerving in the city. They asked to look in her car, and she gave them the okay. She had 30 pounds of marijuana in her
For her own personal use, right?
Then they arrested. She must have spilled her guts because they arrested 3 guys
Yeah.
a little later.
Yeah.
So.
30 pounds. That's,
Bills have failed. Electric transmission lines, right of first refusal, eviction notices for tenants, legal protection for pesticide manufacturers, soil health. They didn't pass. Banning non-consensual AI-generated pornography. So they could not. They could not.
they can't take
Make
your
me look
face.
better.
Well, they can't take your face and put it on somebody
Yes.
that's in a porn movie and put it out like it was you.
Yes.
And
That was signed into law, thank goodness. They increased penalties for swatting as well, which is good. You know, somebody
Oh.
call in a bomb
yeah,
threat,
sure.
and SWAT comes to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
traffic camera regulation bill that passed.
Did that pass?
It did pass.
Okay.
It says here, this is from the Des Moines Register. A separate bill would have banned traffic cameras altogether and banned drivers from using handheld devices failed to pass. The legislation standardized the fine drivers could receive if they are ticketed by a traffic camera and prohibits cameras for issuing tickets unless drivers are going more than 10 miles over the limit, which is good.
Yeah, I think if you're over 10 miles or more over, you ought to get a ticket.
Yeah, you should be.
But I had $175 invested in camera tickets last year. So.
Do you really?
Well, my wife did, but and neither time was she more than, she wasn't 10 miles over.
Deb, I'm on your side. I'm not laughing at you. Communities, from the Iowa Department of Transportation, communities under 20,000 people would not be allowed to issue speeding tickets through the cameras in local governments. Well, that means Independence
And Hazleton.
and Hazleton and
Old Wine.
Lamont
And Old Wine, yeah.
and Strawberry Point
yeah,
would have to take out their cameras.
right. Did that pass?
Well, it says it did.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is, I spoke to the local police chief, Mr. Evans, and it's Mr. Evans? No, yeah, forgive me, it's Mr. Evans. There are a lot of good things about the cameras. Mm-hmm. It slows people down. It prevents arguments with community members and the police force.
Mm-hmm.
Police force, it allows the police force to get along better with the community.
Yeah.
There is value in them.
Especially the red light cameras. Where
Yeah.
people run red lights and crash into somebody. I'm all for those things.
Yeah, there is value in them. But I like the 10 miles over because
Because some places they're just trying to make a lot of money using cameras and hire a policeman. Guy needs a job.
they also, I believe, a bill failed making murder charges for fentanyl deaths. That disappoints me. Bill signed into law, and I've heard a lot of police officers speak on this, criminalizing re-entry into Iowa by undocumented immigrants. Mm-hmm. The problem is the police officers don't have time to search for undocumented.
Yeah.
I understand if they've removed somebody that they don't want them here, we don't have the law enforcement agency for them
Well,
to
no,
do.
well, just even like Black Hawk County is a pretty good population for around here. But just think if they arrested 500 illegal immigrants every year and had to house them in their jail and take care of them until all this stuff got sorted out, what that would do to there's just no way they could even handle
No,
that sort of thing.
no,
And so
no.
the legislature, they did nothing. Iowa has the highest cancer rate, but nothing for that, right? And nothing for the dirtiest water in the country, nothing for that.
No.
And so nothing about livestock containment, polluting the water or anything. So yeah, but they talked about the definition of a man and a woman for several days. I seem like
Yeah. As we close, don't forget in May we have Gibby's food truck and Boyd's food truck and Carter Route at the Buchanan County Tourism Center. That is located over there on the east side of Independence.
North side.
The northeast side of Independence. Thank you. You're right. And,
Right on 150.
all right, on 150. But Carter will play for a couple hours, 4 to 6.
Yep.
Please tell your high school kids, the graduates, that will be time when Independence graduates are about ready to graduate, and Jesup graduates from 4 to 6. We're trying to have a great coming out party for summer.
Yeah. And the Burrito Express will be here on the 29th, the day this comes out,
Okay.
from 11 to 2. So just a couple hours, 3 hours there. So.
All right. Speaking of burrito, I may have one when I go home for
Well,
supper.
see there? You have one in your freezer? Or?
I do. If you'd like to donate to the Steve Brown Arts Center, have an idea for an event, go to stevebrownartscenter.org and follow the link. If you have news or would like to sponsor us, email us at jim@stevebrownartscenter.org or call me at 319-290-0241 and leave a message. I'm Jim Gillespie, and our producer, Blake Tempus, is about 2 weeks away from graduating here.
Hawkeye Podcast School?
He
More than that, I bet.
he is
You can't say anything
going
about
to,
it.
he's going to change. He does a lot for our community, and he does a lot for the Steve Brown Arts Center. But he's 2 weeks away from graduating. If you see him, make sure you congratulate him. I'm Jim Gillespie with Dale Rueber. Thanks to our producer Blake, as always, and Kelly C. Haas for allowing us here at Cowork 591. Thanks to the audience for bringing these stray dogs into your home. And remember, as always, that each day is about little victories.